Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Doar, and as the president of AEI, I'm the guy who gets the great pleasure to come to welcome to our building very important guests who are doing important work in significant institutions for our country. And that is the case today as I welcome you this afternoon to Reinvigorating and Transforming the United States Postal Service, a conversation between Postmaster Louis DeJoy and Kevin Kosar. Postmaster DeJoy is going to speak for a while, and then Kevin and he are going to have a conversation. A little bit background on Mr. DeJoy. He was appointed the 75th United States Postmaster General by the United States Postal Service Board of Governors in May 2020. He was the founder and CEO of a logistics company, and he has applied his private sector background to modernizing and reforming the US Postal Service to better meet the needs of ordinary Americans and their businesses. Dr. Kosar, our scholar here at AEI, is a senior fellow in the Social Culture and Constitutional Studies Department, where he works on government reform with a special emphasis on the modernization of Congress and federal agencies like the USPS. He has a particular focus and expertise on this topic. I think he's the best in the country. He previously spent more than a decade at the Congressional Research Service and has testified before Congress many times. Now back to Mr. DeJoy. You're going to hear in a minute that it's clear to you by the first thing he says that he's a New Yorker. And so am I. And so I can't resist in reminding all of you and reminding him of those great words on the brow of the old postal office building on 8th Avenue and 34th Street. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. As someone who grew up in New York, I always loved that evocation of the discipline of a required and vital task for our country. Mr. DeJoy and Dr. Kosar will discuss the challenges facing the Postal Service. It is with great honor that I welcome Mr. DeJoy to our podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for that nice introduction. I'm also known as the evil Postmaster General. So if you're not laughing at my jokes, I'm going to turn you all into frogs because I have those kind of capabilities. But anyway, thanks for gathering. As our Board of Governors, my team and I endeavor to create a postal service that will overcome the issues and serve the nation far into the future. It is important to recognize the problems we faced when I arrived at the Postal Service, why I believe they developed, and how we are moving to correct for them. The board did not hire me as the Postmaster General to manage the Postal Service, and certainly not to manage our decline. Instead, I was hired to lead the organization in a transformation out of crisis to a status of stability and then on to a successful trajectory. When I joined the Postal Service in June of 2020, we were about 3 months into the pandemic and our financial condition was dire. We were forecasted to lose $20 billion in 2020 and potentially run out of cash in September of that year, just 3 months away. We had a negative $130 billion balance sheet and were projected to lose $160 billion over the next 10 years. Mail volume had declined 42% in the last 10 years, while delivery stops per day had increased by over 10 million during the same time period, cutting pieces per delivery almost in half. We had endured a defective pricing model that was allowed to exist for 14 years, basically subsidizing the mailing industry to the significant detriment of our organization. For at least the next 10 years, we had severely underinvested in our infrastructure to the consequence that it will take us many, many years to recover. 30-year-old delivery vehicles, 160,000 of them. Obsolete and ill-maintained facilities, over 32,000 of them. Substantially outdated information technology systems, like 30 years outdated. In fact, financially, the only way we had been surviving to meet our cash needs was by not paying our employee retirement obligations to the magnitude of $70 billion. But that's not all. Let's discuss the operational service condition when I arrived. We had not met our delivery standards in the past 10 years, and there were not any comprehensive plans to remedy the issue. We had over a 45% turnover rate on our pre-career workforce, creating significant instability in our network and a tough and embarrassing work environment. We had an extremely poor transportation, processing, and delivery network, weak infrastructure, poor strategy, and little operating discipline. This led to 55,000 trucks a day being dispatched around the country, only 30% full. None of our plants being organized, equipped, or staffed appropriately, yielding poor productivity, significant overtime, and the requirement of Herculean efforts to do the simplest of things. We had a retail network so vast that in all, the average American only visits a post office 2 times a year. We have begun to see significant erosion in our share of the package delivery market. And most consequential, we had an organizational structure and strategy that was set up more like a Washington policy shop as opposed to the operational services entity that we in fact are. After all, over 95% of our employees are performing physical distribution functions of processing, delivery, and transportation throughout the country. I can go on. All of these elements of erosion were not stagnant. They weren't frozen at that particular point in time when I showed up. They were metastasizing at a rapid pace, leading to the continued failure of our service and the near-term financial destruction of the United States Postal Service. We were in crisis when I got there. And while the crisis of our condition was bad, the lack of action or existence of any plan and the ongoing stakeholder resistance to any plan was even worse. The Postal Service existed in and almost all cases was deterred by a universe of stakeholders and pundits that had very little awareness or interest in the consequence of years of parochial, political, and self-serving aggression towards the institution. This occurred during a prolonged time period when significant changes and events were happening in the country and in the marketplace. Just about every action from everyone involved promoted a status quo environment or miscalculated action that set the Postal Service backwards while the nation was moving forward. For instance, defective pricing prolonged by the Postal Regulatory Commission, a lack of a fully constituted Board of Governors enabled by the Senate, lobbying by mailers and competitors against the most meaningful management operating, pricing, or service initiatives, congressional political rhetoric to intimidate, and year after year, failure of the Congress to correct for unfair legislation regarding our employee retirement health care benefits. All of this led to a battered organization which, in the face of extremely complicated problems, lost its voice to advocate, which caused it to lose its ability to lead, which caused it to become ineffective in solving its problems, and in some case, effective in compounding them. If you don't believe me, I come with props. The Government Accountability Office has published a report to Congress that the United States Postal Service is at high risk of failing, a 650,000-person organization failing. This has been going on for over 10 years, and nothing has been done about it until several months ago. The GAO also reports that postal management had little ability to plan and finance operation and capital investments in accordance with postal needs, and that postal management had been significantly affected by stakeholder interest and views regarding its ability to make changes. It would take me days to describe the debilitating impact this had on every aspect of the organization. So when I arrived, we immediately engaged differently. As you might know, the same resistance roared louder when I arrived here and got louder as we attempted to make change. In this case, we pushed forward despite the opposition. My position has been that as an independent agency that serves the American people, the Postal Service leadership was not just entrusted to deliver the mail. It was also entrusted with this responsibility to give the organization long-term viability. And that is what we are doing now, as described in the Delivering for America plan. We have a position on just about everything that involves our service and our cost effectiveness. We have staked most of them out, and we're proceeding in a very deliberate manner as if we are in charge of the place, because we are. So let's talk about Delivering for America plan. Upon my arrival, I discussed with the board that it is Postal Service's leadership and responsibility to develop a long-term plan for the organization. At the kickoff meeting with a broad group of executives, I discussed that this plan must adhere to 3 specific tenets. Number 1, we must commit to delivering to every address 6 days a week, as this was the unique service we provide the American people. Entering the organization in the middle of the pandemic made this obvious. Witnessing what we were doing to serve the struggling nation convinced me of its relevance as a critical national infrastructure. And in fact, we are seeing it manifest now in the rapid deployment of the Biden administration's COVID test kit program. As important as delivering 6 days per week, I felt the fact that we go to 163 million delivery points each day could become a competitive advantage to accomplish our revenue growth initiatives and maintain and improve our relationship with the public. All elements of the plan had to be aligned with this requirement. This was non-negotiable. Almost everything else was on the table. The second tenet that was not negotiable was that we must commit to becoming self-sustaining. In fact, I wanted more than that. I wanted us to believe that it was not only important, but also be confident in the fact that we can do it. The Congress enacted the Postal Reorganization Act in 1970, which designed the Postal Service to be a self-sustaining, business-like entity that would cover its operating costs through the sales of postal-related products and services. You see, I believe there was wisdom in that legislation, albeit compromised by the PAEA and subsequent regulation. The Congress fully intended that the Postal Service would need to continually balance service, cost, and price to the nation's changing economy. In other words, it recognized that you can't do all things at all costs at all times, and that absent a business-like equation, users of the system would develop unrealistic and unlimited expectations. In addition, the law contemplated that a mass pressure of these unrealistic expectations, combined with political interference, would cause Postal Service management to develop a lack of operational and service discipline. In other words, succumb to the pressure. The fact of the matter is, for the last 10 years, our stakeholders and the Postal Service management have not conformed to the intent of that law. And as a consequence, we transformed into an existence exactly like the 1970 legislation sought to prevent. That's how you lose $10 billion a year and develop the chronic condition that I found us in. Service, cost, and price all need to evolve and to be balanced as the circumstances in our economy change. It was not done effectively in the past, and this is what we're attempting to do now. And finally, the third non-negotiable tenet, and probably the most important one, is I said to the team that we had to believe we were a going concern, and we had to act like it. We had to believe that contrary to what our current and projected financial conditions proclaimed, that we were going to be here 10 years from now. And therefore, leadership must have a vision for what our role would be in the American economy and how we would serve the American people in the future. And once leadership developed that vision, it needed to have a strategy to get there, and then take the necessary actions, no matter how uncomfortable the journey was. With those 3 non-negotiable tenets in the forefront of our endeavor, and in consultation with a bipartisan board of governors, we set out to develop specific initiatives across the whole organization to begin the transformation of the United States Postal Service, the Delivering for America plan. The plan has close to 200 separate and evolving initiatives across every function of the organization to improve operational precision, to improve our service reliability, to reduce our cost of performance, to increase our revenue, and to create productive and enjoyable long-term career paths for all our employees. We create $44 billion over the next 10 years in new revenue through the use of our market-dominant pricing authority. We also will address our operating costs by taking out $35 billion of waste over the next 10 years and improve our operating precision. We create $24 billion in new revenue by creating an efficient and high-performing integrated mail and package network. And finally, the plan identified $50 billion in savings through the reversing of the unfair legislation regarding our employees' retirement benefit plans. By executing this plan, we will reverse $160 billion of projected losses and avoid a government bailout. We also generate enough cash to invest approximately $40 billion in our people and desperately needed facilities, vehicles, technology, and other infrastructures. With these investments and our new operating disciplines, we will set this organization on its path for the bright future we envision. And what does that future look like? We see a postal service that is the preferred delivery provider in the country, delivering mail-in packages to each American household and business 6 days a week in a reliable and affordable manner. We see a Postal Service retail center in easy reach of every community, enabling communication, commerce, and a variety of services as desired by the American people. We see a modern processing and transportation network, operating in a disciplined and precise manner, moving mail and packages efficiently throughout the nation. We see technology-enabled carriers in new vehicles, many electric, fully loaded with mail and packages traveling their routes in a scheduled and repetitive manner in full communication with their neighborhoods. We see postmasters as leaders of commerce in their communities, helping small and large businesses market and move their products. We see a preferred employer, providing a stable and vibrant workforce with exciting career paths and respectable retirement. We see a proud organization, operating with precision and covering its cost as the Congress expects us to. And finally, we not only see the most trusted organization, but also the most used, and thereby the most needed organization in America. So let's talk. We've been working this plan for a little over a year, and let's speak about our accomplishments to date. First, we have reorganized our management structure across the nation to focus as an integrated operational service entity, driving transformational change from our executive leadership team. I walk around with this. I speak a lot. This is our new team. I got 15 direct reports. This group here is going to change this organization and fulfill all the objectives that we have in the Delivering for America plan. It's showing up in our scores, our operating metrics, our sales initiatives, and our employee engagement. It is visible everywhere throughout the organization. Second, we have taken many actions in redefining both market dominant and competitive products and service standards. We will continue to adjust all our products and standards to align with the market evolutions and to enable us to implement our operating strategy, to logically sequence all mail and packages to flow in an integrated network together. Third, against a great deal of pushback, we are increasing our prices in accordance with our regulations, which is necessary for our continued survival. I believe we had a defective pricing model for almost 15 years, and it's going to take several years before we can ease up, especially in this inflationary environment. Fourth, we have initiated investments that will grow to $40 billion in our people, our operating infrastructure, including facilities, equipment, information systems, and vehicles. Fifth, we have initiated programs to properly staff and energize our workforce and are deploying strategies to make the Postal Service a preferred employer. We have been working with our union and management association leadership in this transformation process, and I am impressed with their willingness to participate in navigating our transformation. Six, we have worked with Congress and most stakeholders to enact the Postal Service Reform Act, and we did so without disruption to our long-term strategy. I believe a major reason the Postal Service Reform Act passed after 10 years of not passing, with strong support from both sides of the aisle, is because the Delivering for America plan provided a comfort level to many members that we were serious about our goals. And finally, we have decreased our forecasted losses by almost $90 billion. And this is done in high inflationary times, getting more than halfway towards our goals of break even. Other than to reallocate our CSRS obligations to correct the original unfair calculations when the Postal Service was established, the ball is now in our court to effect the operating and marketing strategies we need to accomplish the transformation. We have now begun to change the direction of the Postal Service. We are a better organization, in better financial position than we were just a year ago, and we have achieved this momentum during unusual times. The Postal Service leadership team, our management ranks, and all our employees are filled with great aspirations as we continue this journey. But there's so much more to do. Let me discuss some of these important strategies we are now pursuing and implementing. One of the biggest initiatives is organizing and empowering our people to embrace the changes we need to succeed. We are focused on engaging a disciplined and collaborative management team, developing effective supervision, stabilizing and energizing our workforce, and promoting diversity and leadership. Accomplishment of all the strategies of the Delivering for America plan will positively impact the morale and productivity of our employees. Nothing is more important to employees than being part of a winning strategy. Everyone wants to be on a winner. On par with our employee strategy is our plan to align our network of national processing and distribution centers to our future operating strategy. This is a massive effort touching almost 500 network mail and processing locations throughout the country. We currently process mail and packages in a complicated, illogical, redundant, and inefficient way, and do it in facilities that are in disrepair, lack adequate space, and necessary equipment. Our new strategy will logically sequence mail and package flows between selected new and renovated facilities, and we will standardize operations within facilities. This will provide precise, efficient, repeatable, and measurable operations. Concurrent with this initiative, we plan to improve our nationwide surface transportation network that operates between these facilities, reducing truckload traffic by at least 15 to 20% and substantially improving reliability. Let's speak about our delivery network. With almost 19,000 delivery locations around the country, we can have as many as 40 locations in a 15-mile radius. These delivery units are in disrepair, they have poor employee amenities, and operate to a dated and costly strategy. We will be aggregating much of our carrier base into larger, properly equipped, and strategically located sort and delivery centers to operate more efficiently and provide greater reach. Implementing this strategy could reduce local transportation costs in selected locations by 30 to 40%. Substantial deployment of this initiative will make us the preferred delivery provider in the nation. We will have the greatest delivery reach and be the most reliable and most affordable carrier. These changes to both our national network and our local operations will take years to accomplish, but each plant or delivery unit tackled will provide system-wide benefits. We simply cannot do this fast enough. This will transform the Postal Service. And I wish I could say it's ingenious, but it's not. It's obvious. If you were building a Postal Service from scratch today and you knew what you were doing, this is what you would do. The hard part that is not so obvious is how to unwind what we're doing today to prepare for the future. Let's turn to our package business. We will gain efficiency through increased automation and integration of mail and package volume across the network. In fact, we have the ability to use less facilities, less transportation, and fewer delivery units, and greatly increase the movement of mail and packages. The greatest delivery system in the world is literally becoming a fixed infrastructure, like a conveyor to the nation's homes and businesses. And we're going to capitalize it on with new shipping products, new marketing, new pricing, new technology, and a focus on market responsiveness. We believe our first-class package ground product will be our champion to all the nation, with additional features in terms of entry and speed built around it. Our sales teams are energized with new tools, sales leadership, technology-enabled solutions, and a direction. And they know we must grow in the package business and be disciplined with our strategy. Our ability to effectually capture our share will provide the necessary funding to support our postal system in the future. We are not building a package network, we are saving the mail network. Before I conclude, I want you to know we are executing on or developing plans for every area in the Postal Service. Every department in the organization has specific initiatives, including communications, government relations, human resources, and everyone else. Even our historian has a project plan. The engagement around the organization from our leadership team at headquarters to our people in the field is impressive and exciting. And that is how I know we are working on the right things and heading in the right direction. I look to my side, and there's a whole bunch of career postal people there. I look behind me, and there's a whole bunch of career postal people following me, energized, engaged, executing, and debating the issues, in spite of the headwinds we face. This is the Postal Service leading. This is the Postal Service taking charge of its own destiny, and this is the Postal Service on the road to long-term success. Thank you. Where do I go? All righty. Did I go too long?
You were perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I don't get many of those. You were perfect.
Thank you for that, Postmaster General. As mentioned earlier, I'm Kevin Kosar, Senior Fellow here at AEI and the resident postal geek. AEI, rather uniquely, has a long history of working on postal issues, stretching back to at least the 1970s. So I'm honored to carry on the tradition as best I can. Glad for help from Rick Geddes at Cornell University, who's also associated with AEI. And I'm delighted to have the Postmaster and all of you here. And if I may briefly, I would like to thank in the front row, Nye Stevens. I never dreamt of being a postal policy expert, but in 2003, when I rolled out of graduate school and into the Congressional Research Service in the Library of Congress, Nye was my boss. And Nye put me on the postal beat, which is something I had never thought about before, and trained me up. So none of that would have happened were it not for you, Nye, so thank you.
I'll thank you after the questions.
Well, we're now at the Q&A portion of the program, and I have some questions I'd like to ask, and no doubt some of you do too. I want to note that, as you've heard, we've got people in the audience and we have people online, and that in order to take questions in an orderly fashion, we're asking that everyone, whether you're here or out there in cyberspace, to please submit your questions electronically. You can do that by emailing them to mikael.good@aei.org. That's mikael.good@aei.org. Or tweeting them at #Postal Service AEI. And those will flow to this wonderful little tablet next to me, and then I can be just pulling them from the queue. So with that, let me give you my first question. So I promise they'll get more difficult.
Okay.
You had a very successful career in private sector logistics, yet you stepped away from that to take this position. And as it happened, you stepped into kind of a political maelstrom with the country in the grips of an election and a pandemic and everything else. What attracted you to the opportunity to be the 75th Postmaster General of the United States and to put up with all the gripes and snipes that you wouldn't have to face running a private company?
So, first off, I love what I'm doing. I haven't had a stressful day since I've been here. It's really just exciting to work with the team and the people. It's just an amazing organization when I go around the nation, and it's the motivating factor. But I had already left my logistics career and went up onto the board for a couple of years, and then I had an investment firm and a foundation that I was involved with, and I probably would not have done this if we were not involved with in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, I had been asked to do other things in government in my past, and I just was not ready, or it wasn't my. I asked my family once about, should I be an ambassador? No, and they said, no, you shouldn't be, right? It's not because it's because of my behavior, I guess, is how they. But when it came, the nation was in a problem. We were in the middle of the pandemic. The Postal Service was in a problem, and I had the skill set, and I thought I could. I talked to the board for a long time and reviewed a lot of data before I got there. And I had, I thought I could fix it. And then once you get in, I like to fight. I mean, I like to fight. I like to fight for the team. I like to fight for the organization. I believe there's a successful strategy forward. And it's not, being bullheaded. It's being very, very, this is what I do. I run large organizations and operations, and I solve problems and align teams to make things better. I've done it in a big way in the past, and I've never done it in as a rewarding a way. I never thought something would be more rewarding than money, right? That's how that's how I came out of Brooklyn and built up a big company and loved that. I race to the office every morning, and it can't get me out at night, and there's people with me now. The team has fundamentally changed in its thinking and how it approaches everything we do, and I cannot express to you how rewarding that is. And that's why I stay and will continue to stay until we change the trajectory. I'm committed to changing the trajectory. We already did it by half. I think we have another 60 to 70 billion to get out over the next 10 years. And I see it. I see where it is. right? And the team is starting to see where it is. And they're starting to understand what good operating precision is. And they're starting to understand what every dollar means, right? And they're feeling it. And that was void. It was frozen. It was battered organization. And it's actually quite shameful of, just how an institution like this got caught up in so much nonsense that that enabled it to freeze. And so that's why I came and that's why I'm here.
All right. Well, you referenced COVID, as did I, so let's move to that. Those of us with a long memory of the Postal Service, and I think there's probably more than a few in this room, know that 20 years ago, in the wake of the anthrax attacks that occurred post 9/11, there was a lot of thinking given to what role the Postal Service could play in kind of national disaster response or in response to biohazard attacks and that sort of thing. And in fact, under the Obama administration, there was an executive order released specifically tasking the Postal Service to have that sort of duty, which goes beyond what we typically think of the Postal Service doing, which is just delivering mail between persons and from businesses to people and vice versa. So COVID-19 comes along, and we have this massive delivery infrastructure, and the Postal Service was pulled into it and tasked with delivering testing kits all across America. The story has not been told publicly, not to my knowledge, of how did that come together?
Yeah.
Where did the kits come from?
Yeah.
Who purchased it? How did the Postal Service integrate with other federal agencies to make it happen? And I have to say, in my own personal experience, the first time I put in an order for my family, I got those kits in 2 days.
Yeah, it was awesome. Look, I've been involved with many, many big logistics programs of big organizations around the world, and what we did in a very short time period. First, on a matter of the disasters, I have to say, in COVID, the Postal Service was experiencing COVID, yet continued to deliver and make its best. And that's one of the things I inherited. That was a good thing. I criticized the organization a lot to make it better, but the way we respond to emergencies with the whole of the organization, it's built into the genetics of the organization, and the process is just really amazing. And besides things like COVID, when we go into and there's hurricanes or anything like that, we're the first sign of normalcy that comes back into a community and so forth. With regard to the COVID test kits, really, we get lots of requests from a lot of different agencies to do a lot of different things. And since I've been there, it's normally what I say, it's other agencies' glory and our cost, right? I try to stop engaging in that kind of stuff. Nothing as significant as what went on with COVID. But this was one that the plan was coming together, and I got involved with it. My team had worked on it for about 10 days, my marketing team. We didn't have a solution. I got involved 2 days before Christmas with the White House, the White House COVID team, and HHS, who was on lead with the thing, and realized that this was like really going to happen. We basically, between myself and a couple of leaders in our organization, and the White House COVID team, some leadership from HHS and Department of Logistics, began every day, 7 days a week for 3 months, putting meeting on Zoom and putting the program together. Now, there were no test kits in the country at the time. As you know, there weren't any in the stores. And we didn't do any fulfillment as an organization. That was my background. And we didn't have, we had some place where we manage our parts. We had an inventory management system. But we worked together. They first came out, they wanted 5 million orders a day, right? And we were going to launch in 3 weeks, 5 million orders a day. Walmart, I think, ships 1 million orders a day, e-commerce. So we rushed to put together. We had just come off a peak. We had a successful peak this year. I had 50 new facilities that were not attached to mail processing plants. We quickly designed a methodology to receive and handle large volumes of test kits. We had to actually package them, control inventory, package them, and ship them. Put together a real regional approach so it would get to the people, get to the consumers fast. Worked very closely with the White House. I mean, very much. It was the absolute best. And I'm not like a big pro-government person, right, in terms of helping, but it was the absolute best of all the agencies came forward. And one of the things was that there was no time to worry about your own institutional, future and so forth. We just had to get it done. And we all played to our strengths, all the departments. And it was really amazing. We basically as inventory came in from overseas, it got dropped at DLA centers, trucked to 2 or 3 locations I had set up around the country, cross-docked in the middle of the night onto our transportation. We run 55,000 trucks a day, right? We are really good at running trucks. They're not necessarily full, and you don't have to run them, but when we're running, we're on top of them, we know they're moving, and we routed them into 50 plants across the country, made deals with our union. We had to make contract deals because we probably added 7,000 people, to it. And I told everybody, because I would meet with the agencies, and then we'd meet with each other, and I said, do not treat this like mail. It's not mail. It doesn't just go through. We got to take inventory. We got to look at expiration dates. We got to look at the right, it was a whole bunch of, technical things that the agency was just not used to doing. And it became a really, it was rough in the beginning because we had to stake out what reality was because there's a lot of ambition for the undoable. But we wound up doing 3 million a day, and it's still going on right now. And it's pretty seamless. We built it inside the organization. But great work from the White House leadership team, great partnership, Health and Human Services agency, and Department of the DLA and the Department of Defense. And one thing I insisted on is I get paid in advance, and we did, right? So we got money because we can't do things for free. And so I hope everybody ordered it and had a good experience. In the beginning, there was some lag time because we didn't have enough Well, here's the other thing. We took in my CIO, we worked, and they were talking about getting 2 million orders a day, and she planned for like 40 million orders. We had 40 million orders in the first 6 hours we opened up, and the website didn't crash. She created a whole new website for ordering. That went down to, we created a website for ordering. This was done in 3 weeks. All these orders came in based on zip code, got pushed out to 50 locations across the country where we had stock that was assigned for, zip codes, particular homeowners, where it would be delivered to. And that's why the travel time, from time even today, we're averaging, because you get an order, we ship it, it's delivered in 1.08 days, because I was looking at the metric the other day. And that's this is the whole organization behind everything we're going to do in the package and mail business. We're just not set up right. This we set up right, and that's why it worked, and that's why it was cost effective. And we are, because I know the business. I know what we wind up charging, for this, and I'm making sure we make our money on it. But we're much less than much less than anybody in the private industry would charge for this, up to and including me when I was there. So very, very exciting, and the team is very, very proud. The whole team, all the agencies that were involved in it. Really, probably one of the more rewarding things I've done in my career is be part of that. As leading our organization and working with the other teams. Good thing about us, we were the ones who had to execute the most transactionally. It's not like buying stuff. That's why I complain about treating us, the policy side. We have to everything that comes in. We got to get the order down. We got to pick it. We got to ship it. We got to deliver it. It's a very integrated process. And I don't know if the fact that I was personally involved on the Postal Service side gave us the ability, right? Because as an organization, say, yes, no, we can't do it, yes, we can do it, and throw the whole organization behind the initiative. And that was important when you're on, what you sign up for, I believe in, you have to deliver. So we can't, we normally were still in that role of, and it's done amazing things to the people that work at the Postal Service, not just from the standpoint of the accomplishment, it's how we accomplished it. It was very precise, it was very procedural, it was very deliberate. And I think that's how mail and package flow can be, and that's how we're gonna save this place. So they got a taste of it, and they liked it.
All right. Well, you referenced the fact that the Postal Service was designed 50 years back by Congress to be financially self-sustaining. Yet for many years it ran deficits in great part due to mail volume plunging after 2008, but also due to other factors that you cited. Not too long ago, last year or two, Congress gave the Postal Service $10 billion in the course of the pandemic. It was a loan, and then they kind of forgave the loan, sort of thing, which was unprecedented and raised the question: can this agency, this model of a self-sustaining postal service, can it cover its costs going into the future, or will Congress ultimately have to subsidize it because of the nature of the business?
Yeah. So listen, I was personally involved in getting that $10 billion with both Congress and the previous administration and the Treasury Secretary. That was not, and I say this all the time, I don't consider that giving us money, right? I don't consider that a government contribution. The fact of the matter is, during the pandemic, the Postal Service continued to deliver, okay? It continued to deliver while mail volume was significantly down. And in a cost coverage business, if you don't have cost coverage, you have cost. And I personally was involved with the Treasury Secretary, with the Congress, and Congress wanted to give us $25 billion. I didn't want $25 billion. We actually, you know how we got that $10 billion back? We had to show transactional relativity to pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And I was happy to do that because it wasn't a government bailout. They gave Delta Airlines $13 billion to not fly planes, right? And our people were out there delivering during the pandemic, working in the tightest, dingiest areas of the nation, buildings and so on and so forth, and going through it. And eventually, that story worked. And that's the only way it got forgiven, too. It was like piece by piece. That's how we got spooned the money. And we just got an OIG audit on that. That we were piece by piece very accurate in terms of getting the money back. Now, to the further question, yes, I do think there can be a sustainable postal service. That's what I'm working on. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here, right? I see it. I see it in, we have $11-12 billion transportation bill that I think we can get a couple of $1 billion. We could very much be at a break even in controllable cost this year. I have $1.7 billion of inflation in our costs this year that we didn't plan for. So we drive costs out of transportation, we drive costs out of material handling, out of doing silly things that we do because we didn't have a plan to solve for it. Right now we have a plan to solve for it, and I think that we're going to get pretty damn close to this in the long term. I got to use pricing, as I said. The mailers accost me all the time. It is what it is. I think they got a deal for the last 10 years, and we're charging now. And we need to. Like I said, we're halfway there. We got to get $35 to $40 billion out of our operating cost over the next 10 years. That's 5%. That's 5%. You can fall out of bed and find 5%. That's what I used to tell my clients, right? That's that. And we got to grow our package business. And we can grow our package business, and we only got to grow it 4.5%, 5.5%, okay? And, we're there. Now, there's a lot of things. Everything takes a longer time than I am comfortable with, and I'm trying to break down some of those barriers, and I think we're being successful. I got more people than me now trying to break down those barriers. I got the board mostly behind most of the stuff we do. So I am not a fool. I wouldn't be spending my precious time with this unbelievable organization if I didn't think that we could pull it off. And that's what we're setting out to do.
All right. Well, I have time for one more question from myself, and then we'll start to dig into the slew of questions from the audience. Postal electric vehicles, they've been a hot topic the past 2 years. AEI even published a white paper on the topic. That's how hot it is.
And was it right?
Well, I think so. So what was behind the recent decision to expand the number of electric vehicles? I believe you're going to be at 40 or 50% of the acquisition.
I am so glad you asked that.
Because some of the media reports were kind of saying, well, this is, DeJoy folding to pressure from Congress and lawsuits from stakeholders and that sort of stuff.
That's one thing I don't do, okay? But I also don't go down a path without a number of options. Listen, the story on what the Postal Service was doing with regard to vehicles and electric vehicles was just miscast, and we didn't do an effective job of communicating otherwise. When I got there, right, we got 30-year-old vehicles. When I got there, we had worked for 5 years on a special purpose-built vehicle. Okay, and there was a whole bidding process and all this stuff that I wasn't even allowed to be part of, right? But we knew need 160,000 vehicles. I made a decision. I looked at the vehicles and made a decision that we needed to move on stuff. You can't sit on this. The vehicles weren't getting younger. We got people that are told not to put the vehicle in reverse when you go out to deliver, right? They're burning up on the streets when you're out there. So I said, we committed to the minimum order, 50,000. I was involved, Ron Bloom, who was President Obama's car guy. He worked very closely with me on this whole, process. And we decided to buy 50,000. I thought perhaps maybe they were a little too big. I wanted to get, and I was there a few months. So we made a commitment to buy at least 50,000. Had authority to buy 75. I said, let's buy 50. We do the NEPA filing, and the NEPA filing with what the heck? I didn't even know about NEPA filing at the time. NEPA filing, when you file it, it makes it look like we're buying 180,000 vehicles, and that were going to be 10% electric. That certainly was not the intention. I couldn't do what I'm doing right now if that was the intention. At that particular point in time, we put 10% because we didn't know a lot about the cost and risk of our infrastructure to support this, but none of the vehicles, based on the mileage that we were driving, which was an average of 12 miles, right, justified the difference in cost, the overall total cost model. None of them, okay? Then we had a further thing, the risk of implementation. We have 19,000 delivery units. Most of them I'd be afraid to plug a coffee pot in, let alone put electric vehicle infrastructure in it. We would have to dig in and bring amperage and so on and so forth. We put the 10% in there because Congress was considering giving us money, right? We put the 10% in because we were dipping our toes into it to keep it open. Our contract enables us to do more. And then Congress got involved, and really, in Build Back Better, there was $6.9 billion allocated to the Postal Service for electric vehicles, right? That was in the thing. And we worked with Congress over a year. And our people became expert. There's nobody, a lot of people know gas burns more than carbon than electric, okay? We know specific routes, specific mileage, specific house, specific application, and our applications are broad, right, in terms of what we have to do. So, grand summation, when we got the Build Back Better didn't come through, but we got postal reform passed. I always said, when we get more information, when we redo our network, or we get better financial condition, we'll buy more. That's my obligation as Postmaster General. My obligation is to the success and survival of our organization. We got postal reform, and conditions were looking better. We went up to 20%. But I went up to 20% knowing that we're getting very close to figuring out what we're going to do with our network. The retail strategy of consolidating a whole bunch of delivery units from 19,000 to about 12 or 13,000, but 3,000 that will have significant reach, takes the travel distance up a half hour in each, which gets it up to 30-something miles, right? And then we're going into bigger facilities. We're going into our existing plants across the nation that already has 6, 7, 8, 9,000 amps running into the plants, right? So our total cost of this is going to come down significantly. And when I said 20%, I said 10,019 routes. Why? Because I know what 10,019 routes will work. And when I say 40% here and 50% here, I know what, where those things are going to go. My people know. We have experts on this stuff, right? Right now. So, and if I want, and we're actually making a manufacturer of electric vehicles. If I went out today and said, all right, I got $2 billion, $3 billion, I want to buy electric vehicles. You know how many I buy? 2, because they're not available, right? So the whole thing is typical of what the Postal Service has experienced over the last 10, 15 years. You go to do something that has to do with your business and trying to save the organization, and you get a bunch of noise. Mm-hmm. So that's it. I haven't changed a damn thing, right? We're moving forward with our plan. We're better at what we're doing. We understand what we're doing more, and we're taking an appropriate amount of risk to deliver the American people's mail and covering our cost, which is our number one and only mission.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn to audience questions now. And I promised you and your team that I would conclude the program as promised at 6 o'clock, so we have 9 minutes. First question. Mail and letter customers are paying higher rates, and in some instances, service standards in terms of delivery speed have been increased or decreased, depending how you look at it. In short, it's not going to come as quickly in some cases. Do you have a concern that these alterations are going to drive out some of the mail volume?
No. So the answer to that, the fact of the matter is I changed the standards to 5 days, right? You got to remember what we committed to, delivering to 163 million addresses every day. That's been on the table for a long time, okay? And I think would have been the wrong direction to go for the Postal Service. But something has to give, right? And the fact of the matter is we changed the standard. We changed first-class package standard to 5 days, first-class mail standard to 5 days to give us time to aggregate and drive these things together. That we needed. The fact of the matter is mail is not moving any slower yet. It was 2.4 days before the pandemic on average, and it's 2.4 days now. And we weren't making standards before, and right now we're in the 93, 94% across all the boards. So again, it's rhetoric. It's a bunch of rhetoric that's really not manifesting itself yet. Now, we did make the determination that at some point, in order to aggregate all this stuff, we would use the extra time, and think about it, 3 days, I can't go, I don't own planes. How do I get mail from the East Coast to the West Coast in 3 days? Right? I don't have planes. So we did make a decision that we would use some of that time in some of the places if our new network concept, which I'm optimistic about, needed to have an extra cutoff here and so on and so forth. What I figured out is we are so under-equipped. We move 70% of the cubic volume we move are packages, and 30% is mail. Yet we still run it as mail, and this creates so much congestion. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to be just fine with the speed. I think the people that are going to leave, I don't believe in dying slow deaths. The people that are going to leave the Postal Service because of electronic and digital communication will eventually leave the Postal Service. I need to get ready for a Postal Service 10 years from now. Not, and I tell the mailers this, you guys have short-term goals. I don't, right? But I do believe once we're moving mail and packages together, once we right-size the last 10 years of having a defective pricing model, okay, we will be able to control our costs, and we will be the most affordable relative to everything else. And that matters. It is relative. We have 9% inflation last month. I have COLA obligations to our employees and so on and so forth. So, and at the end of the day, I don't think somebody's going to miss a day, right? I just don't think at the course of all that. That's the decisions that we made when we decided to do this. So,
All right. Another question. You referenced the consolidation effort to rationalize the network, to not have so many sortation plants scattered here and there, but to have them in a more rational. What impact do you foresee the consolidations, the shutting down of facilities, the opening new ones, having on the Postal Service workforce from a recruitment and retention perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a bit of right now, on a network side, we have about 500 locations that we process mail in, and we move mail through. I do not see, and then we have a bunch of contracted facilities. So we aggregate mail, and then we disaggregate it and aggregate it and disaggregate it. We're looking at a regional movement process throughout the nation, the logical sequencing to aggregate all mail packages, even some of the different products, to move them logically and really utilize our trucks throughout the nation. We figure you can do that with 70. If you did the math, you could do it with 65. We think somewhere, because we have an embedded infrastructure, 65 to 75 facilities around the country we will move product to get into the region. En masse, everything. Once there, we will cross-dock, process, whatever, to get down to destinating plants, which will not change. This is where we process mail, right, and so forth. And what we'll do is we'll put carrier units in that will take packaging equipment out. We'll put carrier units in there and reduce the transportation on that end. And it'll flow faster. Irregardless of that, on the employee workforce, we're managing. We have time. We're not racing through this. We're working with the unions. We'll manage through this. The fact of the matter is, you might see that we're advertising more, and I'm very committed to having a stable workforce. I've converted, my first year here, I converted 70,000 people to full-time status. 70,000 people, right? We had, and that's helped our availability and so forth. That has not been done, and we signed contracts with the unions. After 2 years, you can convert to a full-time. What we were doing here was bad for our operating strategy and was a black mark on the organization, as far as I'm concerned. And we're fixing that. Long term, do we need 50,000 people less? To lose that $160 billion I talked about, we had to take 100,000 people out of the organization, and we still were going to lose $160 billion, right? Right now, to get to break even, I think we may need to get 50,000 people out of the organization. But that's okay, because we attrit over the next 2 years, 200,000 people leave the organization for retirement. So we're going to be a hiring organization. I tell my people, all this leadership all the time, we're going to be a hiring organization. We need to be good at retention. We need to be good at recruiting people, and we're doing a lot of different activity around there. Now, if we blow up and take all the package business away from everybody, from all our frenemies, then that's a different story. I'll be hiring a lot more, and we can fix that. I promise you, that's not my goal. My goal is to fill my trucks, reduce the trucks, fill my trucks, and get the proper amount of revenue to support the mail and package business.
All right, it's 5:59, so I want to
I'll
slip
take
in
another
one
one.
last question, if I can. Could you say more about your concerns with the IT that you referenced earlier? You said they were very out-of-date systems. And Are you concerned about cyber attacks on that IT, or are you guys already built into protecting
Well, we
against
work
that?
with Homeland, so it's a good question. So when I was here, I mean, there was a couple of things in our IT department. We spent a lot, with everything in the organization, we spent a lot of money in different places on different novel items that were not part of an overall strategy to deliver mail and packages. Today, I tell everybody, if you're not working on delivering mail and packages, right, then you better get on a project, because I'm going to find you, and we're going to, it's not going to be, a good day. My IT team that we put together over the last year, my CIO Preether, who was involved with putting this whole big website together to take in this level of, and 5 direct reports, and the whole team. Really, I mean, the Postal Service is just got tremendously technically competent people, right? Very much dedicated. And some people ask themselves, how's the culture? The culture is awesome. Have like 0 flight risk, right? They're a pretty obedient group, and they're extremely technically competent. They just were not organized. We had a lousy organization strategy and a lousy operational strategy. So we are, and what's not there? We run 55,000 trucks a day, and we didn't have a transportation management system. We dispatch it with Excel. I mean, it's crazy. We outsourced all our customer interaction, right? In terms of, e-commerce, right? We just outsourced it, right? And all of that stuff we're rebuilding. I'm going to put 3 or 4 billion, probably $4 billion into technology. And that team that I have there is as good as any team, because I've been around big IT teams, big operation teams, and so forth. And why I think we're even better is because our focus is pretty narrow. If we keep our focus narrow, it's easy to make decisions, right? It's easy to align the teams, and it has to be, because that's all we're supposed to be doing is delivering mail and packages. I'd rather, right now in this industry, I'd rather have my problems than everybody else's. I don't have to worry about my stock price, right? I don't have to worry about my price. I just got to cover my cost, right? I don't have to worry about unionization, whether it's an independent contractor or not, right? So I'm feeling pretty good about what we're going to be able to do with the team around me. It became my you come there the first year, it's not really your organization, right? You can balk a bunch of orders, but that's whatever. You get a lot of pocket vetoes. Today, it's my organization. It's been that way for the last year, and everybody's in. Everybody's in, and we're rolling.
All right.
Oh, cyber. We work with Homeland Security. Look. Everybody worries about cyber, even if you think you got it. If you think you got it, you're being silly, right? But we have a board. We have an internal board. We report. We have the OIG, who works with us very closely on these types of joint these types of things where the organization is exposed, both in terms of crime, in terms of cybersecurity, and election stuff, and so forth. So we have pretty formidable group of people on it, but any day anything can happen. So, anything else?
Well, I could keep you here for hours.
One more.
But
I'll do one more. I'm generous. I'm raising stamp prices so I could afford to stay a little. Probably should stay a little longer.
Well, it's 6:03. I promise my own boss.
I got time.
All right. Well, you are the postmaster,
My
so we'll do that.
communications people always trying to boss me around. Don't say this. Don't say that.
All right, last one.
Yeah.
Postal Service played a critical role in the 2020 election, delivering more than 100 ballots, enabling voters who were concerned about their own health to avoid crowded polling stations and associated risk. In recent months, media have run stories about the blue mail collection boxes being vulnerable to theft, rusted out in the bottom, things like that. Voting by mail is here to stay. It's been growing with every election over the last 30, 40 years. So what's the Postal Service doing to ensure that the mail and the ballots stay safe?
So one of the things when I got here, and it's pretty, I've bolstered it up by making the organization a little more permanent. We have a permanent election mail part of our organization that that quarterbacks everything that goes on around the country. Before it was kind of ad hoc, it would be put together just before the election. Now it's a year-round structure that's in place. We formed an election mail committee team on the board to give guidance, but the operational side. But for the most part, and then I formed a task force with the unions when we got there. But for the most part, the Postal Service, all those people they see a ballot someplace, they're diving on it to get it to where it needs to go. And that existed before I got here. I mean, the commitment that the organization has as a whole to work with the, to process the mail, to process election, ballots is really unbelievable. It's really unbelievable, and it costs us, it costs us a lot. Now, we are the most stable thing in election mail, right? We've been doing this the same way for a long time at a high performance rate, right? A high performance rate. It's in the 99, 98, whatever, and that includes people who drop their ballot in the day before, right? But what changes is the states and the voting that they change all the time. There are issues with that. I mean, I cannot tell you, especially how many members of Congress believe that we postmark everything. We don't. We don't postmark everything, right? So there are different things that change within the states and so forth. With regard to these collection boxes, I mean, there is crime in our cities. I'm not the mayor, right? And we have but when something happens with election mail or ballots, we're very much tied to state and local police, the FBI, the OIG. There's zero tolerance, and they swarm down, on these things. So I know election mail is safe, and will continue to be safe because we pay a lot of attention to it. It's very, very, important. Every last ballot, and I can go on and I can keep you here for another 2 hours telling you every story that is just remarkable to get, ballots. Like, the cutoff in Key West is at, 6 o'clock and, but the mail comes from Miami closes at 5 o'clock, and we got to get it to Key West by 6 o'clock, and we don't have planes, right? And people running out to, do deliveries, on the stuff. There are some things I've been here 2 years now, and I go home and I just say, it's just the effort, if you get this place focused on things, which is what I'm trying to do and will do, is just really, you're all going to have a great United States Postal Service, in their future. So, and that's it.
Well, all right. Yeah. I want to thank the audience. I apologize I could not get to every question, but there were dozens. With that, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Postmaster General DeJoy, and good evening.
All right.